for people for your projects, for those that like to have hands-on stuff. So I have a map of most of the communities. So if you want to see where you're at, of course you can easily find this online too, but some people like to put their hands on something and look at it in relationship to someone else. So this I'll leave on the back counter for your projects that are going on. The paper for it is down there on that shelf. That's also the paper for your religion project. If we run out, I got some more in the closet there. Anybody have questions about the project? Okay, so today we want to review a little bit, then we want to talk about the, so who are the people that study maps? Cartographers. Now what's the biggest problem they have to deal with? Distortion. Boy, you guys are just right on it here. Why do they use maps instead of globes? Give me one reason, one person. Jameson.
Easier to transport.
Okay, easier to carry and store.
Cheaper.
Cheaper. Aria. You can show more detail. You can compare areas with it. Now what are the parts that you need to have on your map of home?
Key.
What's one part? A legend or key. Explaining what your symbols mean. So you need to have some symbols on your map. A scale. And it should be fairly accurate. I'm not going to be like perfectly accurate, but if you have an inch equals a mile and you're 10 miles from school, then it should be 10 inches or close to that. Okay? So directions, north, south, east, and west. Title.
Grid system.
And a grid system. And today that's what we really want to talk about is the grid system. Remember, for your grid system on your map, you're just going to use what?
North.
Some kind of labels, letters and numbers, okay, for your grid system. Today we want to talk about latitude and longitude because we're going to have a quiz over latitude and longitude on Friday. Originally on the Google Calendar I had that the following week, but I think we can go through it today and be able to take that quiz this Friday. So if you looked on Google Calendar, that's probably Addie. So if you've looked on Google Calendar and saw that it was not this week, it is this week. So today, then we want to look at latitude and longitude. So this is stuff we've already reviewed. You need to know, again, these. We went over these two terms, right? So you need to know those terms for the test. And today we're looking at latitude and longitude. So, latitude lines run what?
Lateral. East-west. Up, down.
So they run east and west, but we measure them from where? Somebody want to hit those lights so maybe Addie can see the word.
Oh, you get it before Jason does. You failed.
So here's our world. You probably can't see this, but. So lines of latitude are running this way. That's why they're also called
I don't know.
parallels, because they never what?
Cross each other.
Lucas, you have a warning for tipping. So the highest latitude you can ever go to, okay, is 90, which means it's right on the North Pole if it's north latitude, or it's right on the South Pole if it's south latitude. You can't get a higher number than 90 for latitude. If you have a higher number on your quiz for latitude, that means what?
It's wrong.
It's wrong. Okay, you did it wrong. Because basically this is math, simple math, okay? Latitude from here to here is 1/4 of a circle. How many degrees in a circle?
90.
90 degrees in a circle. 90 degrees in a circle. So if I do this, that's 90 degrees.
Pretty much, 360.
That's 360. There's 360 degrees in a circle, but 1/4 of that is 90. That's why latitude only goes to 90. So you take in the globe, and latitude is always measured from the equator. This is the biggest problem students do,
20.
that mess up latitude and longitude. Okay? The minute you see a question for latitude, where do you need to go to first? You go to the equator. And then you see where that line is from the equator. If it's above the equator, it's going to be what?
Above 60. That's
Positive number.
All of them are going to be positive numbers.
Should be
If they're
north.
not on the equator.
north.
Okay, so if you're above, it's going to be north latitude. If you go below the equator, it's going to be south latitude. Latitude is always going to be labeled north and south. So if you don't label latitude north or south, it's going to be what?
Wrong.
It's going to be wrong.
East.
Unless it's where?
West. On the equator.
Unless it's on the equator. That's 0. You don't have to have a north and south if it's at 0. Okay? Longitude lines run north and south, but they're measured east and west of the prime meridian. And the prime meridian runs through this little fishing village of Greenwich, England. In the 6th grade, who remembers why they ran it through that village?
Because, I don't know.
Because basically every line of longitude is the same. Every single one of them does what? Crosses the poles. They all intersect each other. So you could start longitude pretty much what? Anywhere. But they chose Greenwich, England. Because there basically is a shipping village in ancient times when this system was first developed. And so shipping sailors and captains were the ones that were going to use this system to help plot locations on the ocean. So that's why they chose that. And not, Nebraska.
Why would they choose Nebraska?
Because it's Go Big Red. I mean, it's the great state. If you ever live in Nebraska, you'll realize that.
That it's flat.
But I actually have lived in Minnesota longer than I've lived in Nebraska.
Wow. Which one do you like more?
Well, obviously Minnesota is still here. Or, actually,
Or
that's
you
not
just
true.
have to draw.
No, if I was just all in my flesh and didn't have any children, was all by myself, I'd be in Nebraska in a little dinky town.
That's weird. Thanks. Oh,
Okay?
I'd be in.
But now I have all my children that live up here. Now I have 4 grandchildren that live up here, so I'm not going to go live in Nebraska where my grandchildren would be 10 hours away. Now, longitude goes to 180 degrees because it's half a circle. It goes all the way around to, who knows what 180 is on the globe? What that line is.
Equator. Nope, that's incorrect.
So 0 is the prime meridian, that's right here, okay? So this is the prime meridian. What's directly on the other side?
Indonesia.
180. Really, there's really nothing in terms of land or things. So it's just ocean mostly. But there's a line there that's used for time, which is called the international date line.
Which means if
So depending on which way you fly, it's either gonna be a day earlier or a day later than when you go. That's why people get,
Mr. Hill,
Cardi B overlooked our. Oh my god, guys.
guys, come on, we have to read it.
Cardi B overlooked. Okay, what does it say, Brandon?
Offsets.
Offsets.
Infidelity.
Infidelity.
Why must it
Oh my
happen?
god! I'm gonna go post this on my Snapchat story. Oh my god, bro, this cannot be happening. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, she looked the other way.
Oh my god,
What?
this cannot be happening.
Louis, or Lucas,
Lewis.
Lewis.
when you take God's name in vain, that's what.
I'll take you.
Oh my gosh.
That was a close one.
Did you guys hear that Kylie Jenner?
Lines of longitude are called meridians.
Why?
Because meridians cross each other. The prime one is 0, everything else goes up to 180. So the only time you don't have to have a longitude is always going to be labeled what?
South.
No. East
And
or west.
East and south.
Okay? If you don't have longitude labeled east and west, it will be wrong.
Incorrect.
Okay?
If it's not east and west.
So, geographers and cartographers, when they're using this system, this grid system to find, what are we finding here with this system?
Location.
What kind of location?
Coordinates.
Exact location.
Exact or absolute location you're finding using this system. They always list latitude first.
Yes.
So you're going to go to latitude. I'm going to go to the equator, and I'm going to count above the equators. How many degrees it is.
18.
Okay? Next, then, I will go to the prime meridian, and I will count from there. So this is the biggest mistake. Students mixing up latitude and longitude. All you have to know is latitude is the equator. That means it's going to be like this. Longitude is going to be like this. Okay? So we got a worksheet here for you to practice. I'm going to give you some time here to work on this worksheet, and then we're going to grade it in class to make sure people are understanding this, which means the test will be so easy. Oh, it's not a test, it's a quiz. It's a way to start out with a social studies quiz average of 100,
Yay!
if you're careful. Some people make careless mistakes. Every time I have latitude, what should be by latitude? North or south, unless it's the equator, unless it's 0. Every time I have longitude, it should be what?
East and west.
East and west. Unless it's what?
South. The prime meridian.
Unless it's on the prime meridian, or unless it's 180. Okay? So for longitude, you could have 2 places you don't have to put the direction. So if it's on 0, the prime meridian,
What if I still do it?
or if it's on 180. Okay? I didn't bring up the...
Will you use our notes?
Sure, this is a worksheet. This is for us to make sure we're doing it right.
Alright.
And then the quiz you can't use your notes on is on Friday. Does anybody have questions about this? The other term you need to know is this. Hemispheres, basically it cuts the earth in half. So basically the equator cuts the earth in half. So we have what 2 hemispheres? Northern and southern. And then the prime meridian cuts the earth in half. And we have a eastern and western. So those are the 4 hemispheres. So if I was right here, on this globe right here, what hemisphere is that? Raise your hand. Who knows what hemisphere this X is in? Hemispheres, basically, 2 of them.
Northeastern.
North and east.
Okay, it's in the northern hemisphere and it's in the eastern hemisphere. So we're gonna give you about, what time's this class in? 10:40?
40,
It
It goes 9:40, 10:40.
So let's go
Yeah.
Yes.
like 10:20 maybe? 10:20 to do this?
Yeah.
Again, you can use notes if you have a hard time seeing something, you can ask.